Yo 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 everybody! Oh, the tiger is interrupting me. So, I hope you've all had a good time with the Fungamist event. I certainly enjoyed it. Loads and loads, a lot more than I expected. I'm kinda sad that it's gone, but you know, we actually also have Surtr coming up. Good luck to everybody and their polls. I'll certainly be polling on this banner, so stay tuned for a video on that soon. And from there, we have CC3 approaching fast. So here's a little guide on it, on what to expect for a week 1 risk 18 clear. It is unfortunately going to be harder than last CC, but it shouldn't be too bad if you start prepping it right now. So let's have a look, and this is the squad. I'll explain each unit in detail so you know what to expect. And to start off, let me show you this image. Now, this is the layout of the map. Basically, to split out into 2 teams, one on the left and one in the middle. So you'll see that 2 of each unit to make up these 2 mini teams. And I do suggest to E2 all of your units that you're going to use, as well as skill level 7. You might be able to clear it below that, but it certainly will become much more difficult. Anyway, first of all, a must-have in the very first slot of this squad is Myrtle. Or you can use male Myrtle, Elysium by the way. They're basically a must-have in a lot of hard content, so please build them, and I do suggest to fully M3 their skills. I do have mine on M3, yep. So for Myrtle it's skill 1, and for male Myrtle it's skill 2. They are just essential, and hopefully, if you're going for Surtr, you'll also get a pot 6 Elysium, which would be amazing for this. So that's the first slot. Next on the list, I've got my 2 healers, but let's go through the tanks first. Basically, healing tanks are preferred, and I'll explain why I've got Spot here. He's kind of irreplaceable, but I'll talk a bit more about that later on. So healing tanks, Saria's obviously number 1, but you can use Gummy or Nerl if you've built them. E2 both of them, so they're both pretty good. And yeah, to support them is your counterparts healers. Honestly, any E2 healers are great. However, Nightingale, if you have her, stands out just because in this map there's a lot of burst art damage. So her S3 reduces that damage load, and because of how this stage works, people come in big waves, which is why you can see burst is so valuable in this stage, because it's either you burst them down quick enough or they'll burst you down quicker. So yeah, E2 healers, any's fine, and Nightingale comes out top. After that, you can see there is a Mia. So how it works is you basically want 1 caster, because there is going to be that big tank in the middle, so you want to kill that with some caster damage. A Mia works. I've seen a run with a Mia work, so anyone higher rarity than a Mia also works, but you can also just use Ifrit. Ifrit's great. She can hit both the middle and the left lane in 1 slot. Moving on, we have a sort of flex guard, which is Spectre here for me, which will be positioned on the left just to block out some of the damage and the burst, but also just to do some great damage. Spectre works, and you could probably replace it with another better guard. Thorns might work. However, there's a few things to keep in mind if you are using Thorns or someone with a ranged attack. But the best unit to use is actually Blaze. Like if you have Blaze, you can basically swap out So in this team setup, I'll have Spot in the middle and then Saria on the left. If you have Blaze, you can basically just swap out Saria completely, just for Blaze, and she can be this tank of the left lane, as well as the damage, you know. She's just an amazing unit to have. Next on is Yato, which can also be Melantha, which is a bit of a weird one, but they both work. It's mostly for those pesky lancers that comes dashing into your face and goes stab stab. And since there is a risk that increases specialist DP cost, Yato is just MVP. Like, there is no way, I think it's triple DP, there's no way you use a 18 cost Gravel, for example, over 5 cost Yato. So if you don't have Yato at pot 6, then obviously try to get him in recruitment. She is MVP in this map. Yato's so good. Unbelievable. And lastly, the actual burst damage operators that you need. Now I have Moose here. She is not a burst damage, but I like Moose, so she will be my filler for the most important unit in this squad, is Surtr. She is unfortunately a must-have. Like, every team that I've looked at has Surtr. So Surtr, if you don't get her, then obviously you need to recruit her, which means the rest of your team needs to be pretty good. If you get Surtr, it makes it much easier, because obviously, you know, you can get Silverash or Ifrit or another caster, or maybe even Nightingale as a healer. You know, it just gives a lot more flexible units for you to choose from. Even Blaze. Blaze is amazing, like I said before. And I suggest for the second burst operator, Silverash, but you can also use Air, etc. Like, there'll be units that you can replace these. You just need 2 good burst units, and I do suggest both of these bursts to have M3 skills. It's going to matter. Like I said, the quicker you kill them, the easier it's going to be. So definitely M3, 2 burst DPS. Now, that's kind of all the characters, the squad. But let me bring up this map again, as there is a few things to consider. So, like I said before, on the left is the Lancers, so you want to use Yato there, but on top of that, there's also a few burst points you want to take into account. First is obviously in the mid lane, which has to be cleared by someone. So you can see Silverash here clearing it. However, there is also the top right, where you can see everyone gathering up here, and the bottom left. You could use Surtr to burst out the top right. However, it's not as efficient, I think, if you have lower rarity units. So what you kind of want to do is, all these top right guys would go to this bottom right panel and then jump to the bottom left, and you basically clear them on the bottom left. Why I suggest that is because there are, if you look here as well, there are flag units in this map, and if you trigger these, it honestly makes it much harder. It just makes the map much harder. Now, if you have better units, then go for the top right. However, if you don't have the units, then just go for the bottom left. And if you do go for the bottom left, you have to make sure you don't hit any of the flag units to trigger the buff. And this is where Spot comes in. Spot is really good because if you play out with the bottom left, this guy in the middle will eventually be guarded or hit your middle guard, your middle defender, which means your defender is going to hit this flag unit. And what Spot does is, he does so little damage, he actually doesn't activate the flag unit. Whereas if I use Saria on this middle unit, more likely or not, Saria is going to trigger that buff, which makes the map just so much more difficult. So that's why Spot is actually irreplaceable for low rarity, and here as well you can't really see it that well, but Silver Ash is actually facing top just so his Swing doesn't hit that flag unit, because honestly if you hit the flag unit the map just becomes so much difficult, and obviously all these guys are just going to come down. Anyhow, the best runs I've found are linked in the description below, so definitely give those guys a like and a sub. I've also included 2 other runs, which includes a 2 unit clear and a 4 unit clear. However, the 2 unit clear is a week 2 clear, and the 4 unit one is a pretty high rarity one, so I would suggest aiming for those. It includes Mudrock and Bleminshine combo, so depending on your Surtr pulls, it's gonna be impossible to get both of them. And we don't actually know if they're gonna come out before CC3 either, so, but you know, they're still fun runs to watch nevertheless. But that's it. I wish everyone good luck, and hopefully the preparation is going to be much easier this time round. And if you have any questions, leave a like and comment down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. See you in the next video. Peace.